Yeah,
We are
lovely.
live. Hello to the flip chart. Now, it is a beautiful Thursday evening in Brisbane. Marcus, you're down in Sydney. You're an hour ahead. And we've
It is a
got
slightly
Dr. Miriam Hadness. Go for it, Marcus. What's Sydney like at the moment?
well, it's a slightly drizzly grey Sydney evening. It's not sunny.
And for once, we have a blue sky in morning Amsterdam.
Very jealous.
Amazing. What a great start to the day. I've actually got the fan on here, Marcus. It's so warm in Queensland at the moment. So if you're joining us, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I'm just going to first of all see if this is even coming up in the Facebook group. There is a 30-second delay. So if you're watching it and you're writing a comment and we're not responding in real time, it's not us. There's a bit of a lag. And also, there's a link that I've shared just at the bottom of this. So if you go to that website and you click approve, we can see your name coming up into public chat. So it looks like we've got a couple of people watching already, which is fantastic. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to talk about today, this is something that we've never done before. And if you listen to the First Time Facilitator podcast, Marcus Crowe and Miriam have been previous guests on the show. And Marcus, do you want to sort of share with us how this came about? I woke up one morning, I had an email in my inbox from you addressed to both of us. What did it say?
Well, it said, "Here's an idea." It was a very half-baked thought, but I was conscious Miriam had been talking about in the lead up to Never Done Before. That the time is upon us, and we need to sort of generate some activity around engaging with the program, and so she's put so much work into it. And I know there are some facilitators who will say, facilitating a room of empty chairs is a spiritual moment, and it can be quite moving and uplifting. It's also a little bit sad if you've actually put a lot of effort into there being people in the chairs. So we thought, why don't we try this? Have a bit of a chat about Miriam's work and how it's been going. And so that was the idea. And you both jumped on it, which I wasn't surprised by.
Can I jump onto that? Thank you, Marcus. And I think the beauty of Never Done Before, and that's one thing that kind of bugs me constantly. It's yes, I put the effort in. I bring together all the people, they're all podcast guests on the Workshops Work podcast, including you, Leanne, Marcus. And it's a joint effort. So I don't want this to be my thing. So for me, the Facilitation Festival Never Done Before is a collective spirit. It's a co-creative effort to bring together things that we haven't seen before.
I love that. And we've got Suzanne Rose that's just joined us. She says she's validated that, yes, we are going live, which is, it's always good, as you said, Marcus, those empty seats. If we're just talking to an echo chamber, I'm happy just to chat to you, but it's nice that we've got people joining us live. So the people that are joining us live, I've got a question for you. Just on that topic of Never Done Before and what we're going to riff on very shortly. What Marcus, Miriam, and myself are doing is the 3Ms, love that, is something that we've never done before. This was going to be a Zoom pre-recorded podcast. We thought, no. In the spirit of things, we're going to go live. So we've scrambled together in the space of about a week to set this up. So a question for all of you, if you're joining us, and if you're watching the replay, please feel free to write replay in the comments and answer this question. What's something that you'd like to try in an upcoming workshop or facilitation event? Something that you've heard about that you haven't yet tried yet, but you think you're inspired by this hashtag of Never Done Before and you want to give something a go. So Miriam, question for you is, how did this all start? This concept of Never Done Before?
It started sometime last year when I came back from another conference where I thought, been there, done that. So this constant going to workshops, not knowing the facilitators, being promised state of the art facilitation and novel content, and walking out and thinking, nah. And this brought to my mind that I have at hand some of the world's best facilitators from all around the globe. I know that they have so many ideas. They only shared a fraction of their expertise and creativity with me on the podcast. What if I invited them to join me on a festival where each of them does something, hosts a workshop that they have never done before, something that maybe a client would not pay them for, but still it will inspire those who are attending and those who are delivering to try new things and to further develop the art of facilitation. Yeah, providing space
So
for
audacious. I love
creativity.
it. Amazing. Marcus, what draws you to that?
Look, I think for everybody, it hasn't been a great year in this trade. When you depend on, being able to gather in groups of people in order to enact your trade. I think Miriam's timing is impeccable, because all of us have had a year where it's never been done before. It hasn't been a terribly pleasant, never been done before experience, but it's certainly been, new. And so I was attracted to the idea of something that was new that might actually be pleasant, because I've been doing a lot of new things that have been quite unpleasant. So let's just say, and look, she's infectious and probably quite hard to say no to. So I was attracted to the premise in the session, how she'd conceived of it. And I think there's something quite lovely that as a professional body, and this is one of my laments, we don't have a Royal College of Facilitation, or a bar association like the lawyers do, or a teachers federation. We just don't have that. It's not a professional gathering that has that sort of robust sanction. I know there's a few pockets of cohorts who've tried to put something together in different parts of the world. And I thought, well, this is a way to gather with colleagues and to be inspired and to, hear some ideas that are disparate and disconnected from my ordinary local existence here in Sydney. So that was the attraction to it. And then the chance to experiment.
And to build on that, I think there's something magic about, as a collective, to leave the comfort zone and to have permission to fail forward and to experiment. Because just the name of Never Done Before, and it started as a working title, because I thought, okay, Never Done Before sounds good. Let's go with that for a while. And then suddenly it became a thing. And I think that the native English speaker always struggle, because it's actually not really English. Anyway, so the idea that we can try something that might fail, and that we can expose our own vulnerability and maybe insecurity with each other, because we're going in unknown territories. So it's totally normal not to know and not to have an answer. So it's a very, I think, novel place for facilitators, because usually we are in control. That's our role. And that's very bonding,
Yeah.
I think, for the community.
Absolutely. We're sort of diving into the deep end without hands attached. I've got a few comments coming in. So Yuri said clever. I don't know who that was in response to. I'll take it, but I'm assuming it was one of you two. But his question was, should there be an international standard though? And we also go, Dan. Dan, welcome. I think Dan's in Melbourne. So thanks for joining us, Dan. Apologies if I got that wrong, but let's riff on that. Should there be an international standard for facilitation?
Well, let me look. I'll start on the basis that I've offered the idea. I suppose. Look, we're not like, if you take knowledge and you start at mathematics as a pure discipline where causality is very clear, and then you apply maths and get to physics, and then to chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology, humanities, and the arts, and you might say that pile is in order of decreasing purity or clean causality. Mathematicians kind of know what's going to work, and it gets hazy as you go up. Now, which field are we applying, right? Are we applying physics? Are groups of people like particles in the universe? And you can argue that they are at some level, but you might say you can have standards where there's purity, like in medicine has standards, right? You go, well, we have standards about how things are being done. Look at the world now, thrashing out standards for a vaccine. Whereas in our trade, you go, can you? I mean, I think it's an interesting question. Maybe you can't. Maybe Dutch workshops are different to Brisbane workshops, and North American. I'm sure they are at some level. So maybe is it less about is it standards, or is it a place for colleagues to aggregate? Because I'm quite envious that my surgeon brother-in-law goes to conferences where they discuss cases of hand surgery, which is what he does, and he gets a chance to be inspired by the surgical maneuvers of his Dutch colleagues, at a conference in Singapore where he presents a paper from a hospital in Sydney. And I go, I wish I had that outlet. And I think that's why I'm so attracted to what Miriam's built, because I think it's pretty damn close.
Yeah.
That's my first thought.
Maybe to build on that, I think it's difficult to have a standard for something that is, which beauty comes from the facilitator themselves and from the fact that we all have different backgrounds. None of us woke up as a child and said, when I'm grown up, I want to be a facilitator.
Yes.
No.
Leanne might have.
I mean, I think when you started
I remember doing a high ropes team building thing and going, I want to run this, but I didn't know what the word was.
Exactly, right? So it's still quite new. And I think the beauty of the community is that we all have different backgrounds and all different understandings. What I think is more relevant is a kind of maybe code of ethics or something, or a morale of how to facilitate, like guiding principles, like in improv theater, and maybe they could be one-to-one, just the same even. And I think it's a lot about mindset and just how you relate to yourself and how you relate to groups in general, which I think are more important than actually the techniques and the exercises we use, because we're all doing basically the same thing, right? It's just how we wrap it, how we explain it, and the energy that we as a facilitator bring to the room, and that spoils over. I think that counts. And that's something that you cannot learn in a classroom.
What do you think, Leanne?
No, I'm actually, well, Miriam, when you talked about those sort of key underpinning philosophies of facilitation, I thought, how funny would it be to be the person facilitating everyone trying to agree to that? Could we even get agreement on what that is? Jordan Peterson wrote the book 12 Rules for Life, and I did a 3-part podcast series, 12 Rules for Facilitation. And I could even tell, I just threw some ideas out just to get, what is my take on this? And even when I reflect on that, because I was thinking, that would make a really good, quick ebook. But I'm looking at what I wrote 2 years ago and thinking, I don't even know if I would agree with that right now. So philosophies, and even what I thought was my true north for facilitation, just through some experience, that's changed. I'd love to know, what would that look like? It's never done before. I'm just going to look at some comments here. So Chris Burns, if I can remember, you in Manchester. Chris would love to try a rapid idea generation activity like Crazy Eights. I've not done this online yet, but have found it a great exercise with brilliant outcomes in person. That's really cool. Something that you can try in your next workshop. Report back. Let us know how it goes. Yuri's responding, not saying they should be rigid. Actually, I can pop these up into the feed. But I often see facilitation in the hands of completely incompetent people. That's a very Dutch statement. That's probably the difference between a Dutch and a Brisbane workshop. I don't know if I'd say the word incompetence so boldly. Completely agree, but we could come up with a couple of principles, standards, and guidelines. Guidelines, so let's riff on that. How would you even get to that stage when they're so dynamic?
And maybe that's a nice session for Never Done Before. How can we actually all agree on a few principles and guidelines?
Yeah, that would be very interesting, right? Because maybe our field is where psychotherapy was 30 years ago. As it tried to formalize itself and say, well, what are we going to live by or stand for or insist upon? Because it's fraught as well. Because there's 1,600 different psychotherapeutic techniques. They're still arguing over, which one is the one, or which one for when. So I think that's quite provocative, right? To say, all right, what if we could convene a dialogue around what might be some durable principles, standards, code of conduct, almost like a Hippocratic oath for facilitation.
Yeah,
yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I like
that's
that
exactly
because in contrast to other sciences, or to sciences in general, there's no right or wrong. It's more like anthropology, where things just are. And I think also to define the return on investment of a workshop, or How do we know whether a workshop was a success? It's something so subjective. In every
Mm.
podcast episode, I asked my guest what makes workshops fail. And the
Mm.
answer I get most of the cases is workshops don't fail because there's always something to learn. So if something cannot fail, how can we actually measure it? And I still agree with Yuri that there are a lot of lemons out there. Because how can we actually determine whether someone is an expert facilitator?
How do the
Yeah.
psychotherapies do it, I suppose? Like, they have, I mean, that's, I guess, why practical hours might be one rubric. I mean, what, I'm not sure, I don't know exactly, but is it 40 hours or 120 hours that the student or the graduating psychotherapist has to deliver, and their supervised hours or support hours, or before they're allowed to sort of be released on an unsuspecting public, and whether our whether our field would tolerate a friction like that said, okay, well, you can start running workshops, but you run them as let's call it a white belt, again, to borrow another metaphor. But after X hours, you acquire, some sort of credentialing that is a signaling device, perhaps. I don't know whether it would need to be widely adopted for it to have any currency.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, if that was around when I first started, I would have loved that, because I was just making it up on what I'd observed, what I enjoyed, and as a result, I reckon I could have accelerated my potential as a facilitator if something like a framework was around. And I know there's a few members in the flip chart that are members of the IAF. I haven't signed up. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm seeing myself sort of in that mix between trainer and like a facilitative trainer. I'm kind of in the middle there. And I know we have lots of conversations in the flip chart on what is a facilitator versus what is a trainer. And the thread just goes off. So if the flip chart is dying any month, I'll just like throw that question back in, and we'll put the spark on the flame. We're going to talk about that now, but a question that we've got for people that are watching the live stream is, what do you think makes a workshop fail? I love that question, Miriam. It's powerful. What makes a workshop fail? So Miriam, for you, what kind of segments, workshops are being conducted in Never Done Before?
So one of the things, or the analogy that Never Done Before uses, is the one of a haute couture fashion show. So you go to Paris or to Milan, you see on the catwalk these beautiful dresses that are so extravagant you would never buy them in a shop or wear them in a street. And still, a fashion show inspires the new trends. So the idea was, what if Never Done Before were the haute couture fashion show or facilitation, where you see things that you might not sell to a client, and still it will inspire the new trends. And so that was the beginning.
Love it.
And then the question was, okay, if someone it's a 24 hours global festival. If someone joins, like we're joining now, you're maybe close to the gin and tonic. I just had my first coffee. Are we in the same mood? Maybe not. We're now having a good time, but we're at completely different states. So we thought, how can we give participants the opportunity to choose the workshops that they're joining depending on their mood? Just like a Spotify playlist. You go on Spotify, am I rather red wine over dinner, or am I dancing under the shower type? So we thought, okay, following the analogy of the haute couture fashion show, what if we go with shoe types? So, in which mood are you? Are you rather in the mood to wear high heels, which are highly challenging and demand very
Yeah.
good practice? Or are you rather in the mood for dancing shoes, or maybe just barefoot with being overdoing? So, this was a long answer for the short question, what kind of workshops do we have? So, we cover all these different areas where we have workshops where we really contemplate the SOC workshops to think, okay, what does it actually mean to be a facilitator? And how can I define my own practice? We have highly challenging workshops, high heels, like Gustavo Razzetti's on facilitation on your feet. What if everything goes wrong? Sometimes you cannot plan anything. Are you ready to just throw off an exercise out of your toolbox? So he will challenge the participants. Then we have Amaranato, who used to be a monk for 25 years, and he will play with the sense of silence. Silence as a threat. What can we learn from silence? How can we use silence as a tool up to the extreme? And then we have
What does that
Jacinta.
mean? What does that mean? Just do you know what that looks like? Because I'm terrified. Do I just dial in and just I don't know how I'd maybe that's my high heel moment.
Yeah, and the beauty. So the beauty is because you asked me before we started recording. Of how do I guide the facilitators when they reach out to me and say, Miriam, what am I supposed to do in a never done before workshop? And what we are doing is,
The irony of that question.
I love the question. And maybe Marcus can share because he was in one of those. So what we do instead of guiding is we have kind of small mastermind groups where the facilitators to the festival, they just join and everyone presents their topic, and then everyone helps them to brainstorm to bring the idea forward. So the entire festival actually becomes really a co-creation even amongst the facilitators.
Amazing.
I think that
might
it's
just mark it.
oh yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's where it's already working in that Miriam hosts these calls and the hosts jump on with, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 others. And, you explain what your thinking is, and you're thinking in draft, you're thinking in beta, if you like. So it's a bit rough, it's a bit woolly. And I know when I described my session, my colleagues on the call were able to very quickly point out some inconsistencies or some disconnected ideas that I don't think connected very well. And I found it really valuable. But to me, it's like it's already working. Like the session is already on because I'm getting collegiate agitation and inspiration. And one of the things I hope happens out of this is that there is some longitudinal or legacy style event that maybe the grand 24-hour thing might be a bit hard mechanically to do often. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'd love to think that perhaps little chapters emerge that say, oh yeah, we're going to keep connecting and keep sharing these ideas. And I think there's a lot of professional loneliness in our trade, and I think
absolutely.
yeah, and I think this is a step towards doing something about that.
Yeah, now on that, we've got a community that are joining us of facilitators. And I think that's why there's the flip chart. There's quite a few people in that group is because, as you said, it's a lonely profession. And certainly after some workshops, when I haven't had a co-facilitator, I've just wanted to talk to someone and share what I learned. And now it's just me in the journal. But it's great to have a group that you can talk to. Now, we asked that question before. Miriam's awesome question. What makes a workshop fail? Yuri mentions no clear direction. And Chris Burns also followed that up. Unclear objectives, so clarity, not being inclusive and allowing everyone to voice their opinions and perspectives. There's a nice little follow-up here. I've been in too many workshops in the past where the extroverts run the show. Miriam, are the extroverts running never done before?
Well, I hope not to. And I think I don't know where I got the inspiration, I guess from one of my podcast guests. But for me, the big breakthrough was the realization that I cannot fix them. I cannot fix the extroverts. But what I can do is I can provide the structure that limits the extroverts to take over and to sabotage the workshops. So what are the rules? What are the limitations that I can set and the ground rules to limit the extroverts and to help the introverts to voice their opinion or their perspective more? What are you doing, Leanne, to limit the extroverts? Or do they have to be limited?
There's definitely it's definitely I know this is a massive bias of mine. I've felt it all through my career when I've been in meetings and someone's tried to slow the conversation down. I get, come on, let's move it, let's go. Like it's, so I'm very aware of it. Same as you, Miriam. And I had a chat today with some people about virtual facilitation and how we manage that. So like I love liberating structures and using what they do to bring all voices together. The prep time involved, giving people time to really reflect on something before they need to share back, the different mediums to share back and all of that as well. But absolutely, it comes to that design. When you're trying to fix it in the moment, that can be more of a cure than the preventative strategy. And I'm still trying to hone that, like trying to someone actually asked in the call this morning, and Marcus, I might throw you the question. He said, Leanne, do you have a script or something some keywords that you say when someone in the group is just taking over the conversation? Marcus, what are your thoughts on that?
Here's an exercise. So you you find a point to pause the conversation, and let's say it's been going for 10 minutes. I'll just simply say, get out of, we work with we'll find some. We work with lots of little A5 cards, postcard size cards, and then we bring pencils, and so we go, right, pick up a card, draw a pie chart of who's been talking in the last 10 minutes. Right?
Love it.
So what happens is I go, okay, there are 9 people sitting here. I want to see, do you draw something like a pizza with 9 even slices or something that isn't evenly distributed? And what you'll find is that well, let me do it. So can you see that? Yeah, so I'll draw this.
Yeah.
Right, so that's what most people will draw, where we'll call him Eddie the extrovert is over there. But when you say, Eddie, let's have a look at your chart. Eddie's will be something like that, going, I think we're all talking and I'm an even share. And then you just say, hold them up in front of you, out like a prison number in a mugshot, look around the room. And that normally, it's done with that. Because everyone will draw a big Eddie slice and Eddie won't, generally. And I find that's the fastest way to surface the asymmetry in the contribution. But I agree with the point that asymmetry isn't always bad. Sometimes the issue is asymmetrically relevant to different people in the group.
Yeah. And I love this exercise, Marcus, because it makes it explicit. And I think this is one of the key tasks or duties we have as a facilitator, to voice what is unsaid and what needs to come up. And I think to have the courage then to say, okay, let's draw this pie chart. It might hurt, but it will be helpful.
Yeah.
And maybe one thing that came to my mind, because I would like Toasty, this new video conferencing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
And what I recently found out is that when you click on the participants, it shows you exactly who spoke for how many minutes. So it actually gives you this breakdown. And you can set limits for the prompting exercises. So I think, especially for early facilitators who struggle to also slow down the extroverts or those who speak too much, I think it can be helpful to use these kind of accompanying tools like Toasty to have more structure and to guide the participants and to just tell them, okay, exercise is over now. You need to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm so glad I asked that question and you had a whiteboard handy to show us. And I think because I think, Miriam, we spoke after our podcast. I think I interviewed you on the podcast and you said, you wrote back to me, because I listened to the podcast, I didn't realize how much I spoke. And I was like, no, I didn't feel that way, and the roles as well, the overlay of roles in this. So today I'm seeing myself as I want to extract the knowledge and the excitement of this initiative from both of you. So I'm sort of hanging back because I want to spotlight you both. So that's an interesting overlay as well. Just to also put a spotlight on everyone that's watching us live, we appreciate you joining us. Yuri says, set parameters in which all can thrive, prepare and mix and tack as you go. And the Presentation Boss podcast has an episode about that exact issue, the dominator. I think that's what they call it. So we've got Eddie the extrovert, Don the dominator. They're not all male, sorry. Darrell the dominator. Check out the Talkometer app. So that might be related to what you were mentioning, Miriam, something that can measure that as well. We've got a link there. The pie chart idea, everyone's loving it. 2 exclamation marks.
What I actually like about the pie chart idea is that it's about perception, right? We would not be annoyed with Eddie the extrovert if we didn't perceive it as too much. Because there are some people, they are so inspiring. Yes, maybe they speak more, and we're sitting there like, please give us more. And we just cannot stop listening. And we would not feel this resistance or annoyance against them. So I think when we just then have the numbers and we see, oh, this inspiring person talked so much. Yes, of course, but thank you. But the moment you ask them for their perception to draw the pie chart, you actually show what annoys them. Because maybe it also shows how little, maybe underrepresentation of some people that they would like to listen more to. So it opens a conversation about actually how can we help to hear more about what matters and reduce the noise.
Awesome. Now, as we wrap up, we'd love to know, so the festival's on the 20th of November. Miriam, what are let's talk logistics. Let's talk, I do hate housekeeping. I try to avoid it when I run workshops or make it as exciting as possible. That's probably a whole podcast episode, is how do you make housekeeping exciting? But Miriam, can you tell us the details? I've got the website link there. What do people need to know if they're interested, curious, would love to know more about this? It's such an incredible event. Well done to you.
Thank you.
Great.
And I'm excited to have you there with your live podcast show, hopefully. Just a side note. No pressure.
No
pressure.
I'm in.
I think the most important is it's a 24 hours festival. And we start at midnight Universal Time, which kind of seemed the most appropriate. It's 1 a.m. in Amsterdam, and it's 11 a.m. of the 19th of November in Melbourne. So depending on where you're living, the festival starts at a different time, either on the 19th or on the 20th of November. And I think what our ambition is to make it real a festival. And the beauty of a festival is you arrive and you don't want to leave. So you go there and you explore, okay, what is my mood? Where are people going? What do I want to see? And depending on this and depending on the dynamics, you will explore different places. So we'll have an island where you can just hang out, have fireside chats with people you met at the festival. You can go to the different workshops depending on your comfort level. There will be a library where you can drop the resources and a bar attached where you can just meet random people as if you would meet them at a festival. We have learning journals. So one gem is guests who arrive at the festival, it's not that we send them a link and then they start scrolling down and looking for a workshop that they want to join. No, they receive one link to a video call. So when they join the festival, they walk into a lobby and they have a person that welcomes them with a smile and says, "Welcome to the festival. What's your last name? Oh, your last name is an H. Please proceed that way to get your badge and to get your links." So people will really feel welcome, and then they will be guided to the program. And they have a learning journal. So that they can really also take the time to process what they've learned and exchange with others. So yeah, we're designing an experience more than just workshops.
Are you staying up? Are you staying up the 24 hours, Miriam? Oh, Marcus, are you?
I will certainly try. I fall asleep watching even the best of Netflix on the couch. So, and I may not do my best work at 3 a.m. But no, I think
Yeah.
I think my session's at 8 p.m. Sydney time on the Friday. I think that's right. So I'll make that a nice evening and looking forward to it. Really, I mean, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I think
one more thing.
two massive.
So
Yeah, go
one
for
more
it.
thing. So we have so everyone who has a model and the backstage pass, they are already joining basically behind the scenes the design of the experience. And we have meetups where we just join on meet on different video conferencing tools and have conversations about how can we harvest the insights of a festival. And what came up there is that more than the content, this connection and community is important. So we now found a sponsor, which is called Braindate. It's E18. They're based in Melbourne, and they have an app that is called Braindate. So you have a profile
Okay.
on the app, and then it's not that you have conversations during the festival, but you're arranging meetups, brain dates. It's either one-on-one or in a small group of 5, that after the festival you have it in your calendar with whom you're gonna speak, and reflect and
I
catch up.
love that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then it's not
That
noisy.
is
It's not
so
over.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not another group that you have to maintain. No, it's in your calendar. It's just one day, but you have the opportunity to catch up with the people that you met there, to have an in-depth conversation. And it's 30 minutes. You cannot talk longer because if the timer's up, the video's off. So it's very structured, and this makes it very meaningful. And you can post topics that you're interested in, so you can scroll through the topics and then say, oh, I always wanted to talk about how to stop the extroverts. Oh, I see that Leanne suggests to talk about this topic. Let's ask Leanne for a brain date. And thereby strangers can connect over topics and common interests instead of this awkward, or you want a brain date with me?
I've never asked anyone on a brain date before.
Never done before.
I wonder what
Never
sort of
done before.
questions you'd put out, like what provocative question you'd put out there just to attract an interesting conversation. I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a cool idea. We'll have to check it out. Brain Date. Great to see that there's a Melbourne company supporting it. Well done.
Oh,
So thank you
Montreal.
so much for joining us.
Montreal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
Montreal based. Did I say Melbourne? Montreal, Canada.
Oh, I thought I heard Melbourne.
Maybe I said Melbourne.
Canadian. It's truly global.
Yes.
Truly global.
Excellent.
Any final thoughts? I'm super excited, but Marcus, would you like to add anything to close it off?
Oh, look, my only thing is to thank the two of you, Miriam for the idea all the way ago, and Leanne for jumping on this and giving us the platform of the flip chart. It's a privilege to play a small role, and I hope it lingers beyond the 24 hours. And I think we've just talked about a way that it might, and and I'm delighted to be amongst it. Thank you.
Awesome. And if you're watching, just write replay. Let us know what you thought, what you picked up. If you're on braindate.com or whatever it is already, let us know in the comments. And Miriam and Marcus, it's as always a delightful. It's always a delight. This is the thing with live, right? If that was a solo episode, I'd just cut that bit out. But we're going live. It's never done before. Thank you so much for joining us. Love chatting to you always, and can't wait for the 20th/19th of November. Well done. See you, flip charters there.
See you then.